Hello everybody and welcome back to the Mark Goldbridge channel. Subscribe, like and all that jazz. It's going for Goldbridge. It's answering your questions as normal and lots of topics we need to get into. We will be talking about politics. A little bit of politics in football seems to be becoming more prevalent. Do you agree with it or don't you agree with it? Lots of your questions to get through as well. We will be touching on something that I don't know, this Shamima Begum thing. She basically left the UK at 15 to go and link up with ISIS, and now she's in a Syrian refugee camp and wants to come back into the UK, and it has divided people. Should she be allowed back? Should she not be allowed back? I'll give my thoughts on that. I'm not going to duck that one, even though it is slightly political. I still think it's worthwhile talking about, which I'll talk about in a bit. But I just want to start off with loneliness. Motorcycle emptiness. Doesn't even work. But anyway, let's start off with it. Loneliness is something. Look, you know what I would say very, very quickly. I think there is a moral. There is a responsibility to spread a message out there, whether you've got 1 million subscribers or followers or one. It doesn't matter. I think, to spread the good work is a good thing to do. And the only advice I would ever give anybody, because you take advice from wherever you want it to, and why should you take advice from me? But the one lesson I learned, relatively into my early 20s, I would say, is the biggest thing you can ever learn is to understand yourself. Understand your limitations and your expectations and your capabilities as yourself. Because the sooner you understand yourself, the better. So that when you fear something, when you have to deal with loneliness, mental health, or anything like that, if you understand who you are, it makes the job far, far easier. I think when you have an unrealistic expectation, or you beat yourself up because you think you should be something else, that's when it becomes an issue. And when I speak about loneliness, if you ever do get lonely because you haven't got a girlfriend or you've got nothing to do or things like that, I can categorically tell you there's been times in my life where I have felt like that. I definitely remember when I was 17 years of age, all my friends went to college and were doing A-levels, and I had to drop out because I had gone to the fever, but I'd gone to a new college, so I hadn't really built loads of new friends. Everyone else was doing their own thing, and for about 8 months I was just in a bit of a wallowing in my own sort of loneliness, really, with no direction. And it's not nice, but I think that's the whole thing. It's accepting it, it's being open about it. I think when you keep things inside and then you have expectations or you think you should be that you shouldn't, that can be a negative impact. So I would say, whether you are lonely, any negativity that you've got in your life, accepting it and sort of bringing it out into the open for you and others to discuss, I think is the real positive thing to do. And as I said, look, you know what? When I used to go to school, one of my best mates, he would go into if we were in a bar, you're 13 or whatever, or you're in a shop, he would just go and ask for whatever. I'd always be a little bit standoffish, didn't want to do it. And I wanted to be like him, and because he was really confident, and I wasn't quite like that. That came with later in life. But actually, I look back on that and go, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't want to have been what he was like at 14. I want to be what I was like, a little bit reserved, a little bit shy, I suppose, because that made me who I am today. I had to learn all those lessons from being quite a quiet and reserved, sort of shy person when I was younger to what I am now. I've been through that journey, and that's who I am, and I'm happy with who I am. I think setting your expectations about who you are and understanding who you are will set you free in many ways. If so that when you have got time on your own, where you are a little bit lonely or whatever like that, knowing who you are, and I suppose being, as corny as it is, being your own best friend, valuing yourself, understanding what your weaknesses are. There are things about me that I think, I wish I didn't think those sort of things. Normally sexually things about what I would like to do in the bedroom, but I will never be allowed to do, like kissing feet or things like that. I'm joking. That is a total joke. But you know what I mean? Seriously, we've all got our weaknesses, we've all got our strengths, and I think understanding those is important. And I think some people don't. I think some people don't spend enough time looking at who they are because they're so interested in how they're perceived by everybody else. Love you. And I don't mean that way. Anyway, let's move on and take some of your questions. Will Arthur or another big character die in the next series of Peaky Blinders, says Alex. I'm pretty sure he will. Zar says, do you prefer apple pie or apple crumble? I think I answered that. I prefer an apple cobbler because it's got a softer start. What do you do in your life outside the United stand and football in general? A lot. I do a lot of things. To name, I like a good walk. I like to cook. I like to spend time with family and friends. I like the pub, which people will know. Not going to do that one. What's your main goal for 2019, says Jake? Don't really. I used to have aspirations on a yearly basis. And I think, you know what, I think sometimes, I always think the most important thing is that your friends and family health and everything like that is very important. I suppose the older I get, that becomes more important, because you should never take for granted those sort of things. I've lost people around my age and, you know, and older and stuff like that. And you know, life's quite fragile. So I think that is something that I always prioritise above the others. I've got no control on it, but obviously, you know, continued health for family and friends is important. Who gave you the idea to go into YouTube? Says Icy Marcy. I think I've answered this before, but the idea came, I think it was just after the World Cup in 2014. I was on holiday. I was lying there on a lilo in a swimming pool, and I thought, you know what? I think football needs more fan opinion, real talk. And I had no idea about YouTube. I had no idea about anything. And I went in, and there was a couple of people. I think Arsenal Fan TV had been invented by then, so there was people doing it. But they didn't influence me, because I'd never really watched anything on YouTube. So it came from an idea of myself. And then I came into the platform and realised there were other people doing it. Unfortunately, they weren't doing it the way I wanted to do it anyway. So that's where it all started. But that's a very important thing, because I was thinking about this the other day, actually. My daughter actually asked me at the weekend, have you ever done a video on YouTube where you've had more dislikes than you've had likes? I said, that's what used to happen for the first 3 or 4 months. People hated it because we were new and everything like that. So I look at the journey of it, and it is stunning. And I would always say that to anybody. Just because something doesn't work at the start, don't necessarily give up on it if you believe in it. Will you ever do a family vlog, says Safer Armin? I don't think so. Who's going to win the World Snooker Championship in April, says Douglas. I'm going to go with Rocket Ronnie O'Sullivan, or maybe Mark Selvey. What drives you to be the person you are today? I'd already replied it. A Seat Ateca, definitely. Let's bring in this Shamima Begum thing then, because I know a lot of people had mentioned this and over the weekend, and basically, so 15-year-old girl from London, Bethnal Green, I think, goes to live goes abroad to join up ISIS, to be an ISIS bride. 4 years later, she's in a Syrian refugee camp and she wants to come back to the UK. Very, very divided opinion in the UK about this and worldwide. What is your opinion on it? I've been asked to give mine. My opinion on this is that I've actually done a little bit of reading around it. And I'll tell you what my interpretation of it is. Things have gone tits up for her and now she wants to come home. She married somebody when she went over there. ISIS strongholds in that area are obviously, you know, becoming less and less. I think her husband's been detained and caught, and she's ended up in a Syrian refugee camp. So she wants to come home now. I think if ISIS was still expanding in the area where she was living with her husband and he hadn't been arrested, I think she'd still be there. So that's the question in itself, isn't it? The reason she wants to come home is because it's gone wrong where she was. And I think when you listen to her interviews, she doesn't negatively talk about that experience like she was being kept there against her will or anything like that. She said, I wasn't involved in killing people or propaganda or getting people to go over there. I was basically just a housewife for 4 years. She's had 3 kids, 2 died young. She's got 1 now. She wants to come home from the refugee camp, obviously for that reason. She was asked about the Manchester bombings and the killing of innocent people, and she said that I don't agree with that, but it's retaliation. It was, you know, it would be seen as retaliation or something along those lines to the attacks by America on women and children around the world as well. That is her belief. She was asked about the beheadings, and she said that her understanding is that that's okay in her religion, which I think a Muslim cleric from London has come out and said, show me where it is okay to do that. Actually, if you take a life, it's like taking loads of life. So she doesn't strike me as so. I tell you what, she was 15 when she went. I'll give her that. I'll say, you know, you are still vulnerable at that age. She could have been brainwashed. I don't know the girl. I don't know anything about her. Maybe she is thick and naive and she went and did it. Maybe she was very clever and wanted to do it because she believed strongly in that. But what I will tell you is that actually, I'm not going to give you a definitive answer on this because I don't have all the facts to give a definitive answer on it. What I would say is that there are people living in the UK who have the same opinions as her. You can't not let her into the country just because she's a little bit sympathetic to these terrorists who feel that they're doing it in retaliation to the evil West. There's people living in the UK and all around the West who feel like that. So that isn't a reason in itself. A reason in itself might be that she's a threat, having spent a long time living with this terrorist organisation. But I tell you what, if people think she's coming back to the UK and going straight to prison, I think the head of the police in the UK has already said it's very, very difficult to try these so-called ISIS brides because what have they done? They've just gone abroad and joined something that you've got really very little evidence against them. So I think it's going to run and run, but ultimately she is a UK citizen. She was born in the UK, and it's our problem, I suppose some would say. Very, very strong opinions on it both ways. I see Danny Dyer's had his opinion on it, for fuck's sake. I mean, Danny Dyer, you're a bloody soap actor. He used to go around doing videos acting hard. I mean, then again, it's all about opinion, isn't it? He was saying that, maybe she deserves to come back and have a second chance. I'm certainly somebody who believes somebody deserves a second chance. It is very, very, very difficult. But ultimately, my enduring thing from the little bits that I've read about it is it just comes across to me, she isn't even doing it right. She's saying like, people should have sympathy with my situation. But I think the sympathy she wants is she's stuck in a Syrian refugee camp with a young child and she wants to come home. And as I said a few minutes ago, I think that when you read it, she doesn't come across... If I was her, and it would be manipulative, so maybe you've got to commend her on being honest. If she'd said, I was groomed, I went over there because I was groomed and I was stupid to do it, and I want to come home back to my family and everything, then I think there would be more sympathy. But actually, I think she's being quite honest, which isn't to be respected because of what her beliefs are, and that terrorist organisation, what they've done is not something that I agree with, the way they've gone about it, They might have strong-held beliefs about what the West have done to Muslims in that area, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But you can't just, I think abducting innocent people and blowing innocent people up, it's not the way to get your message across. And I think what she's saying, from what I read, is that I think if where she was with the husband she was with hadn't been, arrested and stuff like that, she'd still be there. So. But it goes back to the fundamental point that she is a UK citizen and she's probably got rights to come back. But there's a lot of anger towards it. But I think that the world that she went to live in, that she wanted to live in, that she was happy to live in for 4 years, and she's not saying she was unhappy with that doesn't exist anymore. So now she wants to come home. Is that a threat? Has she got those beliefs? It's a very, very difficult thing, isn't it? But there's a lot of people who've gone over and done there and that. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that is mine. I think that, she's only coming back because the world that she chose, she can't have anymore. And obviously, she doesn't want to be in a refugee camp with a child. I'm all for second chances, but it is dangerous. It is dangerous. And ultimately, I don't think there's an easy answer because there are responsibilities. Top 5 players outside the top 6, says Mohammed. Oh, God, I wouldn't even be able to answer that without a little bit of thought anyway. Would you wear a Liverpool top for £500, says George. No way! £500? You'd have to go a lot higher than that. Would a Liverpool fan wear a United top for £500? I mean, some of them would, but they're a cheap date, aren't they? It depends what your standards are. Favourite pub and drink, says Shithouse. My favourite pub is probably my local pub, which is the Farm. And favourite drink, depends on the mood. I quite like these gins at the moment. Quite like these like rhubarb and ginger gin with obviously tonic in it. I do quite like gin at the moment. I never used to, but I like the flavoured gins. Honest answer, there you go. Politically in football, I want to talk about that in a minute. Football Manager will be back. What do you think of DTFC, says Oliver Wakefield? I think it's a gimmick. I think it's a gimmick to promote... somebody, I've said this before, I mean, AFTV, I understand it, United Stand's going to have a football team. DTFC, I think it's massively, massively egotistical and knobheadish. If I'm totally honest, Mark Goldbridge FC, it's like that's what the equivalent is, and I'm not even digging the lad out here. I just think it's a measure of the person that they are so up their own arse and have people round them who are so up his arse. Mr. DTFC. It would be like Mark Goldbridge FC or True Geordie FC. It's so egotistical. Who are you? What are you? What? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, that's my thought on it. Shed 7, very, very good band, Elliot Cross. Really like them. Chasing Rainbows is a cracking song. I've never completed a Merlin Premier League sticker book. No. I always get bored. Not answering that. What are your views on that? Not answering that. Did you watch The In-Betweeners? Yes, I did. If so, what was your favourite episode or moment? Says Josh K. I think anything with Jay, really, because he reminds me of when I was at school. Although I wasn't what I am now at school, as I've said a few minutes ago, within my friend group, I was very gobby, and I was a bit like Jay, bullshitting about what I'd done at the weekend. And my favourite bit off the top of my head would probably be the bit where he's on the bike. I think it's in season 3. And he's like, oh yeah, I can ride this. And he goes on the bike straight into the shop front. It's funny, that is. It's very funny. In one, favourite movie of all time. The Departed always comes into my mind, Joe. Very happy that White Gold's coming back. I really liked that series, and obviously Jay from In Between Us is in it, and Simon. If you could, I can't think of any question, so the question is, what question should I ask since I have no question, says Veda Devil. Well, I'll ask you a question then. What do you think specifically about footballers, but not just footballers, celebrities and politics? Now, this could be Gary Neville, Gary Lineker, Danny Dyer, whoever you want, and Piers Morgan, whoever. I think a lot of them use social media in a very, very good way, but also I think that they inflict their personal political views way too much. I think Gary Lineker's terrible for it, absolutely terrible for it. That's my opinion. But if I was on Twitter all the time going, I think that this particular leader of a party is a dickhead, and I think that that one is that because I'm Labour or I'm Conservative or I'm Liberal Democrats or whatever. I don't think that's right. I think politically, I think that this country is run by this sort of people. Politically, I don't believe in the monarchy. I want a republic. This, that, and the other. I just think politics and social media are a bad thing unless you're a politician or you're a political observer. I don't think as an ex-footballer, film star, soap star, whatever, I don't think it's right because that's not why you've got the following that you've got. You're using the following that you've got to promote your personal views. If you're an ex-footballer, your following is because of what you did on a football pitch. If you are a soap star, your following is because of your bloody acting, unfortunately. That's what they follow you for. And I feel, maybe a lot of people think I'm wrong on this, I feel that when you get people who have got massive followings for a specific reason and then they use it because of to promote something else, I don't think that's right. And I don't think they do it on purpose. I just think they think, oh, look at me with my 5 million followers. I'm going to talk about this now for a bit of an ego boost because I'm making them people feel how I feel about something. And I think that's dangerous. I do. I think it is. I think, some things, I mean, that thing about Shamima Begum, I don't think that is political. I think that that's just a personal view on something that's obviously very topical. But political views, conveying that you're a liberal, right wing, left wing, whatever like that, it's almost dictatorship in some ways. I don't like it. It's something I've sort of been hinting at for a few weeks now. I don't like it. And also, the most important thing about that is I might follow those people because they're heroes of mine from growing up. And then I start to hear their views that don't go hand in hand with mine, and it makes me respect them less. And I said this before on the United Stand. Ryan Giggs was a Manchester United legend. Of course, there's a lot of rumours and facts of things he's done off the pitch that personally would make me say, if he went and sat at a table in my friend group, I'd say, piss off, Ryan, you backstabber. I wouldn't be interested in that. But I closed my mind off to that because actually all I want to judge Ryan Giggs on is what he did in a Manchester United shirt, which, to be honest, was absolutely fantastic. What he's like away from there, not interested in that. And I think that's the sad thing when these people who are your heroes that you follow or like, and then you see them spouting stuff that you're like, oh, God, that's a shame. And I think that's the danger as well, that they don't realise that people might follow you because of your footballing or your acting or whatever like that, and then you gob off about your political views and people think, oh God, he's a dickhead, So that's my thought on that. What's the best football game you've ever seen live, says Liam McBlain. A United Stand 3, Arsenal Fan TV 1. I've not given on Football Manager. Who would you rather do from behind? No, too political. And thoughts on the Falklands, looks a bit cold to me. Do you go on holiday often, and if so, where? Says KLG. Normally go about once a year. Thoughts on, not talking about the Labour split. Do you? No, I don't. There was a lot of comments about like sex with males today. I noticed that I was just like, what's that all about? Favorite serial killer, says Phil Jones FC. Yeah, I love them. I love that. Jack the Ripper. Actually, I can give you an honest answer to that. Jack the Ripper, I just think is... I'm going to do a Goldbridge Investigates of that because I've always been fascinated by that. So yeah, definitely Jack the Ripper. Matthew said, what is your opinion on the girl who wants to come back? Which is partly why I said to discuss it. Favourite video game you've ever played, says Mr. DT's anger management counsellor. I think it would be Sensible Soccer on the Amiga or Championship Manager. I think you always go, or Civilization. I think you always go back with the ones from when you were younger, don't you? Not a UFC fan. I don't mind it, but I prefer boxing. Why don't you use your real name now? It's better, says Joe Hilton. It's a good question. I think I made that decision when I actually told everybody a couple of years ago what my real name was, and it just doesn't feel right to go to my real name. Mark Goldbridge has always been associated with what I've done, and that's that. Don't watch WWE anymore, but I'd like to get back into it if Shawn Michaels is back. That's when I stopped watching it. Why are you so obsessed with Arsenal, says Was Class Bellerin. Look, mate, I don't follow or interact with any Arsenal fans. I would actually flip that around and say the obsession is with Arsenal fans following me, constantly asking me, why are you obsessed with Arsenal? I'm a Manchester United fan. On my personal Twitter, I can tweet what the hell I like, and I do take the piss out of a lot of things, and Arsenal are just a magnet to be taken the piss out of. It's not an obsession. Trust me, if I was obsessed about anything, it would be about teams that are better than my team, and I don't talk about them because they're too much of a threat, and I will end up having the piss taken out of me. Tweeting about Arsenal, they get tweeted a lot about because they're shit. And you're a banter magnet. It's not an obsession. You're just consistently crap, and I find it funny mocking your club. That's what it is. It's not an obsession. You're obsessed with me by constantly asking me why I'm obsessed. Why are you following a Manchester United fan who doesn't like your football club? You know? I flip it the other way with that. So I'm not obsessed. I'm not obsessed with Hazard either. He's just an easy target. People need to realise that. When I'm mentioning people, I'm normally mentioning people who are an easy target. I don't really talk about Liverpool or Man City much because their fans can put me in the place, quite rightly. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it today. Quite whizzed through some interesting topics. Going for Goldbridge every Tuesday lunchtime it goes up. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And get in the comments. Get in the comments on Twitter and under the video, because I'm always looking for good topics to talk about, and I do enjoy it. So thanks everybody for that. See you all soon.